Hey everyone, welcome back to Engelbard. Well, I've got a brand new, utterly pointless comparison video for you today, in which I take a look at the arcade and PC Engine versions of Street Fighter II Champion Edition. But wait a minute, didn't I already cover Street Fighter II Champion Edition? Well, one of the very first videos I ever did was comparing the arcade version of Champion Edition to the Genesis version of Special Champion Edition. Here's a reminder of what things looked like when my videos were terrible. We're going to look at Capcom's arcade version of Street Fighter II Champion Edition, along with the Genesis / Since I've already covered this game in the past, I'm going to keep the intro short and sweet here. Here's a spec comparison of the arcade versus the PC Engine hardware, while I sum a few things up real quick. Capcom released Street Fighter II Champion Edition into the arcades in March of 1992. It was the first upgrade / follow-up to the massively popular original Street Fighter II The World Warrior. This game added playable boss characters, it changed the colors of all the backgrounds, it tweaked the visuals for all the characters at least a little bit, and added some new moves and had some other minor tweaks behind the scenes. Now, Capcom developed its own version of Street Fighter II Champion Edition for the PC Engine that was published by NEC directly in June of 1992. This was a Japanese-only release. It never officially made it to any other territory during the commercial lifetime of the system. Now, this one is a bit of an odd duck in that the game was released on a huge 20 megabit hucard rather than a CD, which the PC Engine CD format was extremely popular in Japan at the time, so it was really a surprising decision. And this 20 megabit hucard, which translates to about 2.5 megabytes, is the largest hucard game that was available for the system during its commercial lifetime. There were also 6-button controllers released for the PC Engine to facilitate playing this game properly on the system. Playing it with the standard 2-button or the 3-button controllers is a total nightmare, in which you had to use the select button basically to switch between punches and kicks, sort of like if you were playing the Genesis versions of Street Fighter II on a standard 3-button controller. So, not recommended you play it that way. On another note, have I ever mentioned that the D-pads for the PC Engine and TurboGrafx controllers were complete and utter because they were? Alright, recording methodology for this one. I did use save states in order to keep my sanity intact, so that I could ensure that all fights occurred in the same order to ensure easier editing, and also to make sure that no fights ran too long. I didn't have to reload with any losses this time because I didn't have any losses, but I did have some fights that just went on too long on one system versus the other, so I did reload a few times to make sure that they were a little more in sync. Having said that, it was impossible for a game like this to keep things completely lined up, but I did the best I could, and this video is considerably shorter than the other Street Fighter II comparisons that I've done, so you're welcome. So I'll provide a running commentary explaining some differences while the comparison video itself plays, and then I'll come back at the end to close things out. Ready? Fight! Here we go. First up, like its contemporary 16-bit console counterparts, the PC Engine game has black bars above and below the screen and a smaller play area. Unlike those versions, it takes the score and puts it into the upper black bar. I hope the frothy whiners that complained about the energy bars being in the black bar of the pre-release Genesis version were equally upset with this decision. Other things to point out: this game uses the same ported SNES assets as the Genesis version, so we have much smaller characters with much less animation than the arcade original. Since the PCE can only do one hardware scrolling layer, the backgrounds move kinda weird in this version, and the energy bar runs all the way across the top of the screen with black bars on each side of it, in what I presume is a raster effect. If I'm wrong about that, feel free to ream me out in the comments. Okay, let's talk about the music in the PC Engine game. I kinda hate it. The voices, on the other hand, are surprisingly great. Compared to the SNES and Genesis voices, the PC Engine voices are definitely the clearest. Alright, Ken's stage. Here we really see the limitations of the PC Engine's graphical capabilities. You'll see that all of the background is one layer, so the boat and the water far in the background are on the same scrolling layer. As with the 16-bit console ports, Capcom redrew the main boat in the background so that it's straight and no longer on an angle. Also, there's no detail at all at the bottom of the pier on the PC Engine. Also, that big boat just sits still in the PC Engine version. It doesn't bounce up and down. For the sake of comparison, I'll note that the boat does move up and down in the Genesis and Super Nintendo releases. Once again, I was not impressed with the PC Engine music here. At least it doesn't sound as awful as the SNES version of Ken's song, and I'll note here that the PC Engine only has 6 sound channels, versus 12 in the arcade version, had 8 FM and 4 PCM. On the Genesis, we had a total of 10 sound channels, which was 6 FM, or 5 FM plus a DAC, and then 3 PSG tones and 1 PSG noise channel. On the SNES, we had 8 channels, all of which were sample-based. One quick thing I'll note as we begin Chun-Li's stage is that there's a little bit of slowdown at the start of almost each fight. Like pretty much all the major console ports, the colors in this stage are off by quite a bit. There are fewer cyclists riding by in the background on the PC Engine as well. Look at the bystanders or spectators in the background. The guy literally choking his chicken is much more vigorous on the PC Engine. So the background in this stage isn't too bad on PCE. The loss of parallax effects doesn't really hurt this one too much. As for the music this time around, I feel like the PC Engine version manages to sound okay. This is one of the better songs in this version of the game. Hey, here we beat up the car. The colors and stages of destruction on the car look a tad different. Also, while the bonus round music is kind of annoying in all versions, it's really annoying on PC Engine. Oh yeah, the text also has a funky fade-in on the arcade that's not present on PC Engine. And here we are in the USSR. You'll notice this stage takes quite a hit. First off, the colors are really different on PCE. It's much darker, and the floor just kind of looks like it's covered in urine for some reason. On PC Engine, we're missing the fence in the lower left corner of the stage. In the lower right corner of the stage, the chain is just lying on the floor instead of running from the floor to the ceiling like in the arcade version. The music in this stage is sorta tolerable, but yeah, it's still not too good. Alright, Dhalsim's stage looks super weird on the PCE. The elephants kinda look like they're floating when the screen scrolls because of how the single background line scrolls. There's also some flicker near their feet when the screen scrolls as well. The colors take a hit here, as in most levels, but it's really kinda surprising considering the PC Engine's capability in this area. It seems pretty apparent to me at least that Capcom wanted to make quick and easy ports of this game and wanted to ensure they had a level of parity rather than tailoring each version of Street Fighter II they made to the strengths of the systems they appeared on. As in the 16-bit console versions, we're missing a row of elephants on PC Engine. Oh, and notice how different the jars on the floor look? Interesting. Dhalsim's arcade song isn't super great, and, well, his PC Engine song is even less super great. Ryu's stage is another that really suffers from the lack of parallax backgrounds. Everything above the wood floor is just a simple single layer in this version. Also, it's missing the moon in the sky. Why no moon, Capcom, you monsters? As a side note, this stage was also missing a layer on the Genesis, the scrolling sky. However, it's way more cut back in this version of the game. It's also worth mentioning that the sky is significantly darker overall on the PC Engine. As for the music on this stage, well, frankly, it sounds very weak on PCE. I can't stress enough how disappointing most of the music in this version of the game is. Okay, quick note here. The PC Engine version only has 2 bonus stages instead of 3 for some reason. This bonus stage doesn't show up until much further into the game on PC Engine, which is why you see my score so much higher. But I moved it here so we could look at the 2 of them side by side. Check out the support beam. It's completely vertical on NEC's machine, while it's got a nice little slant going on in the arcade original and the other home ports of the era. On the PC Engine, it looks kinda like a basketball hoop. Fun trivia, or something you may not have noticed, the timer in this stage is not really a timer at all. It shows you how many barrels are left. E-Honda's stage comes off fairly well on PC Engine. It's still flatter than its contemporary siblings due to the nature of the hardware, but hey, it's got the now super controversial rising sun on the mural in the background that's been removed from the latest re-releases of the arcade game on platforms like the Nintendo Switch. As we saw with Special Champion Edition on Genesis, the tub in the background does not overflow as it does in the arcade version. The music for this stage sounds a little empty on PC Engine, but it's sort of okay. Aside from the sheer lack of available sound channels, the other problem is that the instruments that Capcom used in this version of the game in general just don't sound very good. here's old Blanka's stomping grounds in Brazil. Yeah, I'll once again point out that the background looks really flat in the NEC version yet again. The colors are also a little bit more limited than they really should be on this system. For the 3 major console editions, I was always disappointed in just how ugly the hut is that makes up most of the left portion of the stage. It looks a lot better and more natural in the arcade original. And yeah, once again, the music in this stage is pretty grating on PC Engine. Capcom could have really done a much better job on this song on the system. Okay, so this is where things get funky with names, since the PCE version is Japanese. In Japan, this character is named M. Bison, obviously a reference to Mike Tyson, since, you know, the portrait looks just like him. In the West, we knew this character as Balrog. The background is missing some details in most of the home versions from the 16-bit era. Once again, the background is very flat on PCE. Also, the colors are considerably darker in this version than the arcade original. Also, I'll throw in here that the spectators watching in every stage look a lot less detailed in the home versions than the arcade game, which is obvious in this stage. Finally, there are fewer lights on the floor, and they all glow the same colors at the same time on PCE, as opposed to the fancier cycling colors of the arcade original. The Capcom logo behind the audience in the rear center of the screen is more prominent in the home version than the arcade one. The PC Engine music in this stage is... yeah, it's okay, I guess. Not great, but it's decent. This drum can bonus stage didn't make it into any conversions of the 16-bit console era. On the SNES and Genesis, they replaced this bonus stage with one where you beat up some piles of bricks instead. You know, because you're so tough. Another name change. In Japan, this character is Balrog. In the West, he is Vega. I'll call him Vega because I'm a selfish American pig that thinks the world revolves around me. Hey, what's with the colors on the PC Engine in this stage? The floor looks really weird. And yeah, once again, no parallax, just one layer, which really makes this stage look especially weird with its fence. Now, Vega's stage has some peculiar differences among the home versions. Here on PCE, you can see that we have the 2 guitar players on stage. Those are actually missing on both Genesis and Super Nintendo. It's one of the few things added to this version that's missing in the others. And this is especially odd, since Genesis Special Champion Edition and SNES Turbo came out after this version. But if you compare this to the Genesis and SNES versions, the spectators in this stage, especially the singers, look way worse on PC Engine. Okay, music. The music on PCE is actually alright in this stage. I'd rank it above the SNES Vega stage, but below the Genesis Vega stage. The one boss whose name didn't change internationally is Sagat. Yay for that, I guess. They did an okay job porting this super simple background to the PC Engine. Strangely enough, the sky has fewer colors on PCE than on Genesis, but the grass on the ground is slightly more detailed on PC Engine, even if it is just basically dithered with 2 colors. There are a few other slight improvements on the PC Engine over the Genesis on this stage, and that's that the floor plates are closer to the correct color of the arcade game on PCE, and the embellishments on the robe of the statue are silvery on PCE, sort of like the arcade version, while on the Genesis they're the same color scheme as the rest of the statue. The music in NEC's version is alright here. This is not one of the best songs in Street Fighter II, it's really short and repetitive, but yeah, it basically sounds okay. Alright, the final battle. In Japan, this character is Vega. In the West, he's Bison. Visually, this background is very dark on the PC Engine. Unlike the other home ports of the era, we're also missing some of the spectators, and they're positioned a bit differently. For the final time during this commentary, I'll also mention just how flat this background looks compared to both the arcade game and the other home ports. Another oddity is that the bell in the background is straighter and generally less bell-like on PC Engine than it is in the arcade or even the Genesis and Super Nintendo ports of the game. Also, just like in the Genesis port, on PC Engine we see a brick wall on both sides of the stage instead of just the right side as in the arcade original. Then the music on PC Engine on this stage is just kinda meh. It's not bad, but it's not all that good either. Alright, here's the character ending. Pretty similar between the two, but very slightly cut down on PC Engine. It's also a bit darker. Hey, look! There's me forgetting to put my initials in on the PC Engine. Swell! Okay, here's the ending. In my Genesis video, I noted that this was the second best ending, but you know what? I was dead wrong. This is actually the best ending. My dumb brain had thought at the time that the one with the characters fighting on the backgrounds was the best, but it's actually the second best. So I accidentally showed you the best ending last time, and on purpose showed it to you this time. Enjoy. Also, kind of funny that on the PC Engine version, they only smash drums. They never smash crates. Weird considering it has the crate graphic in Guile's stage. Want to know something else completely pointless? The hole at the top of the metal drum is always on the left side in the arcade game during the ending, and it's always on the right side on the PC Engine version during the ending. I'll bet you sleep better at night knowing that. Thanks for sticking around to the end here. So, yeah, as you can see, the PC Engine plays a pretty good version of Street Fighter II Champion Edition. But if we're comparing it to the Super Nintendo version of Turbo or the Genesis version of Special Champion Edition, I've got to say, despite all the buzz you may have seen saying that the PC Engine version is surprisingly great and it's the best home version of the time, it really isn't. It's the worst of those three, if you ask me. Why? Well, I think the visual cutbacks were much more severe on this one. The loss of all the layers of parallax gives this game a really flat and just weak look that is not present in the other versions. The colors are pretty nice. They're similar to the Super Nintendo one, but they're still not fantastic and nowhere near what the system was actually capable of. When it comes to music, I think this game has the worst soundtrack of the three by far. I mean, it's, again, down to the hardware on the PC Engine. Since they were not doing this game on CD, they only had access to the 6 sound channels for all the music and all the effects, and because of that, there were pretty severe cutbacks to the music. Now, the gameplay is fine, but, you know, the gameplay is fine in the other two versions also. Really, the only thing that is really cool and unique about this version is how clear the voices are. One thing I hadn't really touched on yet in this video is that this version of the game, much like those released for the Genesis and Super Nintendo, is missing the critical versions of the stage music from the arcade game. That's the song that changed a little bit when someone was damaged to a certain level in the arcade game. When the same thing happens in these home versions, it just takes the regular song and speeds it up a little bit. And this is something that really bothered me about all the home versions that were available at the time. But did you know that there was one 16-bit version of the game that was going to include all of the critical versions of the songs? Did you know there was also one 16-bit version of the game that was going to have more animation than its contemporary counterparts? What was this special game? Well, it was a beta release for a system by Sega that starts with a G and ends with an Genesis, and I may just take a look at that version in the not-too-distant future. So that'll just about do it for this video, my retro gaming friends. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. If you haven't yet, please subscribe. Also, please help spread the word about the little channel that I have here. It's the only way that it can grow. What are your thoughts on the PC Engine version of Street Fighter II Champion Edition? How do you think it stacks up compared to the other versions of the game? Go ahead and sound off in the comments. With that, I'll say thanks for watching, and see me later.